Welcome back to Vibrational Wellness with Turek Baptiste, where we explore the energy shaping our lives. I'm your host, Turek Baptiste, spiritual advisor, lifestyle coach, and I like to say your homie on this journey of self discovery and awareness. So today, we kind of have a hometown hero on. I knew this fellow when I was a young guy, um, and to see his progression is really amazing. He has a very interestingly triumphant story that I definitely wanted to get out to my listeners, and he's moving forward in a very serious direction with his intentions for reform and being a motivation and help to men who've been in similar predicaments like him. So we're gonna dig in with him today. What's happening, bro?
Hey, how you doing, man? First of all, I want to say congratulations. I'm really proud of what you do, what you continue to do, and I'm glad to be here today.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Um,
So we literally knew each other as kids,
yeah, way back, way
way
back.
back. So when you think back to like elementary school, what would you be most surprised about now at this point in your life? So you think back to the person you were in elementary school, the kid you were.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about doing a 360 compared to who you used to be, but in reality, you do a 360, you end up turning around to the same spot. And if you look at that whole rotation can be a month, a year. And you're spinning around in circles, ending up in the same spot. So really, there's no progression, only age. Um, so I think the old me would be surprised at the new me as far as making a 180. And I say that, what I mean by that is that when you do a 180, you turn your back on the person you was.
Mm.
And then instead of doing those rotations, those circles, I tend to I decided to walk the opposite way. So when you walk the opposite way, not only are you turning your back on your past, but you're walking away from it, and then that past begin to be smaller and smaller and less relevant as you progress towards betterment.
So I really agree with that um, analysis. So I feel like the same, working, starting out just life coaching, and then adding a spiritual element to the work that I do. You find that a lot of people are in cycles, right? And they feel like because it appears as if they're in motion, that they're making progress.
Mhm.
But sometimes, like you said, that 360 can be you just repeating the same cycle over. So you've ran
Exactly.
this whole course with this, and now you've stopped. And what you thought was a reset was just a reset of the same cycle. But 180 says I literally go from one end of the spectrum to the other, and that's quantum physics, right? That's high vibration and low vibration.
Mhm.
So being able to say I'm making a decision to be on this end of the spectrum. I'm very clear and aware of where I am on this end of the spectrum. But I'm making the decision to, like you said, turn my back on this end and make my way to the other side. I think that's a really dope concept. And like I said, a lot of people don't realize that what they think is motion is just them in the cycle.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're still doing the same thing because you're giving the same response and it's rendering the same outcome. And I
right.
really like your perception on cycle.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's rip the band-aid off and tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little more about myself. Well, I grew up on the west side of Chicago, attended Leaf Erickson
Okay.
Grammar School, elementary school, should I say. was probably like 3 blocks away from the area I grew up in, and my grandmother raised me with my aunts. I had basically one male role model, which was my uncle, because my mom was mentally ill. She suffered from schizophrenia, so she was not able to take care of me. That's why my grandmother took me in. Never knew my father. So, and also I grew up in a neighborhood where it was full of corruption, violence, prostitution, drug dealing, gang banging, and so when I look back at who I was, the elements I grew up in, it was kind of like self-explanatory that these elements was going to affect me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it affected me in multiple ways. Um, I ended up becoming gang related, not because I wanted to, because my area claimed me. Um, so I ended up growing up, going back and forth to school, walking through those blocks, and having to deal with the other young men that was also going through different traumas in their lives. And what became innocent, as far as these guys chasing us, and we're running from them, and we end up becoming gang members without being actually told that we're gang members. We grew up in this area, grew up in this area, and you tend to represent these areas without even understanding that you do. But
So what you're speaking of sounds like is just becoming a product of your environment unknowingly, right?
yeah,
Almost like without a choice. You know,
yeah,
we come from the
absolutely.
same place, and I had the same experience. Maybe only different in my family structure. I knew my father, my mother and my father weren't together, but my mom's married a maniac at the
Right,
time. Like this nigga was beating ass and beating ass, right?
right.
So my relationship with my mom was me seeing her. My early relationship was me seeing her getting physically abused, right? And getting my ass whooped in the process.
Mhm,
And realizing later on, once I was able to, get certain certifications and licenses to understand clinically what I was experiencing,
mhm,
realizing I grew up in a domestic violence home, right?
mhm,
But still outside of that immediate environment, we shared the same, right? Growing up on the same side of town.
mhm,
So I found myself in the same experiences. Like, nah, I'm not trying to be one of them. No, nigga, you one of them.
mhm.
and
Yeah,
it's and it's kind of like people who are our age who kind of speak of that. I, I don't think younger people really understand times that we were in, right?
mhm,
This wasn't a time where social media was around where, you can say somebody's bullying you or something like that. Nah, you kind of had to have an adaptable element or you would get swallowed up.
a- a-
So I wanted
absolutely.
to speak to that because I know a lot of people, especially my listeners who are like abroad in like places like Germany, like I have listeners in China, they don't really understand the real black survival struggle,
Mhm.
right? And how it's on different levels.
Yeah,
But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on because you can speak to different levels and different degrees of it.
yeah. Well,
So okay, go
I
ahead.
also wanted to say that a lot of people, when they think about um, gangs, they think that everybody chose this,
Right.
but that's not the case. It was forced on a lot of people, and you either roll with it or you didn't. But at the end of the day, you had this label on you, and you had to be prepared whether you
For
accepted this
anything.
label or not. You
You
know?
have to be prepared for anything. If you make the decision, be like, nah, nigga, I'm not jumping into that. Or, all right, I'm ready to drop this.
Mm-hmm.
Nah,
No,
it don't work like that. Right.
no,
And in some cases, in some hoods, especially again, like the area we grew up in, your whole family would be in danger.
yeah,
Like the people
yeah,
you live with would be in danger. Like it goes beyond just, I'm leaving out of my house getting bullied. Nah, you're gonna either have to adapt, nigga, or
yeah,
pretty much gonna be running from this shit at least for the next 4 to 5 years.
yeah. And it's hard to find a balance in between.
Right?
It,
Especially at that age, right?
absolutely.
And like you said, not having guidance. Like, so my father, he got sick with an aneurysm when I was 13. So kind of the really vital years, I didn't have with him as a teenager. And like you said, not having that guidance steers you in the best direction that you know how. And if you are naturally adaptive to your environment and becoming a product of that, you just go in that direction.
Mhm.
And it takes, and I don't even like to call them mistakes because I'm one of those people that believe all things happen as they should. But it takes a series of events to happen in your life for you to then get to a place where, like, damn, I understand where I was at then.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're speaking of being a product of your environment at an early age, and then where did that lead you next?
Well, it led me up into my after grammar school, after elementary school, I went to Marshall High School, and I started that chapter in my life realizing that I had influence, and I didn't know how to handle that influence. So I handled it the best way I could. I had people join forces with me, and with that, we became our own little clique. Just a bunch of young black men leaning on each other, and it's a false sense of love. You know, I done the same thing in my neighborhoods, and what what changed because I was in school as well as in the streets, but I wasn't a bad kid compared to other kids I knew, right? Of course, we dibbled and dabbled in certain things, but we were we wasn't the worst. And but what threw me off is that um I looked up to the wrong people. I looked up to the older guys in the neighborhood. I looked up to the pimps, the players, and my uncle was back and forth in prison. He was my only role model, only father figure. He was a drug addict, but he was all I got. And I basically mimicked those negative influences. And it had a huge pull on who I was and who I became. Um, and by me not having my mom and father, I grew up with a sense of I didn't really love myself, you know. So
So
it's
you
how
essentially didn't really know what love is, right? You didn't have um, the parental figures to even express love through behavior, right? Because we not
exactly.
only learn through formal teaching, but we learn through behaviors, right?
Yeah,
So as a child, you not only seek discipline, but you also seek love. So
absolutely.
at a certain age, if your mom is feeding you, at least that's one expression of love. Now, if it's some toxic shit and she curse you out after she feeds you, we get it.
We
But
get it.
you,
Yeah.
you understand that feeding is an expression of love. So like certain behaviors, we understand or we identify as love. So you essentially at the time didn't know what love was. And looking for that structure, you becoming a product of your environment and looking for that structure, you're like, okay, I can only do what I've seen. I haven't seen anything else, so I have no awareness of nothing else. And
Yeah.
it seems like this person is getting the good attention that he running it. So I already know it's naturally in me to run it.
To run it.
So okay, let me follow what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you found yourself incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, was that the first time that you were incarcerated, or was this like a second time that you were incarcerated and you found yourself in for a longer time?
Well, growing up, I had some small petty offenses
Okay.
that never, as a juvenile, that never led into incarceration. I mean, as far as me doing time. At that time, it was community programs that once you completed this program, they'll drop the charges, and that prevented me from, going to little juvenile. It kept me from going to prison early on. But a lot of these programs didn't have the follow through. So it was like once the program completed, I'm back to square one. And yeah, at the age of 17, I believe, I had a situation where um, a drug addict bought some drugs from me, and they were surprised to see me because this woman knew my family. And when I mentioned my mom, she was just like, "Wow, I used to hang out with your mom. I'm glad you made it." I'm I'm like, what do you mean? You glad I made it? And she said that, yeah, I used to hang out with your mom, and when she was pregnant and went to labor with you, she had you in the alley.
Wow.
And I sat there like, oh yeah, she tripping, man. Just this,
Wow.
you know how sometimes we look at drug addicts as okay, they're the lowest of the lowest. They're peasants, so we don't respect or even pay attention to what they say. So I took that information. I went to a family friend in the area, and she said it was true, and said that that's why a lot of people around here love you. Um, then she asked me if my parents and my grandmother and them told me. I was like, no, they didn't. So I went back home, back and forth, not saying anything, and then it finally came out, and they set me down and explained some things to me that I didn't know about my mom. And even though I was mad at them for the way I found out, they explained to me that we didn't know how to tell you, when to tell you, and if it was even important to tell you. Um, so I understood it when they told me, but it altered my equilibrium.
Right.
I end up, go ahead.
So I found myself in the same space, and that's why I know or knew this conversation was going to be a very good conversation, because when by the time I was in my early 30s, so it was a little later,
Hmm.
and I realized what my 20s had been and how much of a mess I was, how many people I had messed over, and I started to make the attempts to like work on myself. And I was brought up, well, not necessarily brought up, but what I saw was, okay, if you're gonna work on yourself, then you need to get a woman that's established.
Mm.
So I find this lady, she's established. We're all good from what I understand. But then all of my indirect mommy issues just started pouring all over her.
Mm.
Then I didn't realize that she had very direct daddy issues that I was fulfilling just by being there.
That you didn't know about.
Right. So by the time I, really dove into some serious therapy, I had to make peace with the experiences I saw with my mother and her husband at the time were them at the current age that I'm at now.
Mm.
So I done thought about how crazy Shorty was. Now I vowed to myself I would never put my hands on a woman because I see the effects. I grew up with the effects. But Shorty putting locator apps on my phone. You know what I'm saying? She popping up places I'm at, right?
Mm.
All of this toxic, expression of trauma that when I look back, okay, my mom's was like 27, 28 when she stabbed him and he kicked the door in.
Mm.
So how I can make one way to make peace is they didn't know any better.
Mm.
Like at early 30s, if I would have had some kids right now, 10, 12 years later, they would have had me in therapy.
Right.
Because they would have seen me act in ways that they later on saw me mature from.
Mm.
So it's very interesting to hear the story of your parents, your birth, your inception from other parts of the family, and to see how they attempted to protect you
Mm-hmm.
from it. But everything is energy. So realizing that you essentially were born in the alley and born in the alley because of, certain conditions, did that harden you or soften you in a way to other people?
It absolutely hardened me. I don't recall even telling anybody about that story back then. That was something internal that I kept to my chest, and it turned me into something else.
Yeah.
And like I said, at the time I was 50-50, 50 in the streets, 50 in school. I think I added maybe 25 more percent to the streets and took more away from my schooling. And because I was born on the same block I'm from, I started having beef with some of the guys around the area because I felt like I was born over here. Can't nobody tell me anything over here. So I'm finna put these drugs right here. I'm getting ready to shut everything down. This is my block. Um, I just became more.
Yeah, I heard about you. I heard about you, bro. So I had already left the city maybe
Uh-huh.
by then. But I had definitely heard, you know what I'm saying, you definitely held, well, I wouldn't even say held the block down. You definitely was holding several blocks down,
Right.
like a staple in a sense.
Yeah, well, I was in two different locations as well, not just my location where I was at. But I had another friend from another area that was repping the same thing. So, and it just became it just it's just crazy how negativity and money can add up and turn you into something else.
Yeah,
But it's covering something internal up.
yeah.
So fast forward because of that, I of course like yes, I did time, and leading up to me finding out this information, I had a deal with this guy. Um, Things kind of went astray, and I didn't know it at the time this guy was on PCP. You know, so make a long story short, I was shot. A few weeks later, um, situations occurred dealing with that occurrence from that moment, and I end up at the time thought I was defending myself, but I reacted in the way that my aunt taught me: don't run. You just hold your ground, and this is how young black boys need to survive in the urban community. You don't run because that opens the door to you being a coward,
Right.
and that led into my incarceration because I reacted when I could have left. I could have called the police, but I reacted the same way I was taught, the same way
And
the
and,
neighborhood taught me.
and
And
the crazy thing about that, like the statement you made, you said, I could have ran, I could have called the police. Most people hearing that statement would be like, yeah, you could have just ran or called the police. But people who actually exist in that space on that level of survival,
mhm,
call the who?
exactly.
If I call the police this one time, now
Mhm,
all of these people are on my ass. Like, this period is not for one
mhm.
time. And then me being who I am, right? You being who you were at the time, what I'm calling the police for? No,
Exactly.
I'm gonna handle business, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So I reacted in our form of, from the streets. I reacted in our form of self-defense. And you know, a life was taken. And when I got into the county jail afterwards, it dawned on me while I sat in that cell that wow, I caught this charge in the same alley I was born in. Yeah, that's deep
Man,
right
talk
there. And
about
it was
divine timing and divine shifts, right? If you were never even made aware that that's the alley that you were born in, you wouldn't even understood the significance of what happened when it happened.
mhm.
Okay, so what is the main thing that people assume about you when they hear 20 years in prison?
Mm. Well, for those that don't know, I served 23 years on a 28-year sentence. Um, I think they will assume that the things that interest me in the past is the same things that interest me today. Um, yeah, because I have friends that drink, they smoke, they ride around the block just doing nothing, or they just doing the same things that I was doing when I was out with them. And I'm like, wow, you know how they say, some things don't change. Um, yeah, some things I guess don't change. I think that's one of the things they assume that I still want to hang out at the clubs. I still want to, but no, when I talk about doing that 180, I want the opposite of everything I had.
And like I keep telling people, we old niggas. We look
I ain't
young.
claiming that one, but I ain't claiming
Like,
that one, man. But
well,
all
just
right,
that's in theory, right?
yeah.
We look young, but things that I would have done at 32, I don't even have the capacity to do now. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
about to hang out with you for a whole weekend straight,
Mm-hmm.
drink liquor and smoke drugs. Nah, my body is gonna have a different type of like response and recovery time.
Hmm.
So nah, I don't have time for that. I don't like when I tell you I'm at a place, I don't want no problems. You step on my shoe, excuse me, my bad. I don't
Right,
want no
right,
issues
exactly.
because I've experienced going down a certain route. And I experienced it for such a large time of my life that or a large span of my life that by the time I was able to leave the country and live away from America for a substantially large amount of time and come back, it really showed me the pettiness that we have here with most things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said most people will assume that you would, kind of be on the same thing. I'm gonna say what was and when was your mental shift? Because apparently your shift had to take place within these 23 years.
Yeah, before I even got my time while I was in the county jail, I made a conscious decision that I was gonna learn as much as I can from this lesson, this position I was at in life. And again, I didn't know if I was gonna get found guilty, if I was gonna beat it, but I made that decision. And it was something about saying it with conviction. It's about the tone and me saying it in the mirror, looking myself in the mirror, and you can lie to everybody else, but the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself.
Yeah, you can't lie to yourself. It's
You can't lie to
impossible.
yourself. So I stood on that even after I got my time. But what shift to me, I want to say maybe in 2006, 2007, because I'm around all these older guys in prison, right? You look on the streets, you like, man, where's the leadership? The leadership is in prison.
Mm.
The leadership is being away from the drugs, being away from the alcohol, having that clear conscience, being able to have time to sit, read, and these older guys seen something in me that they ain't see it in most other young men. And whatever they sing, they wanted to water it. They wanted to feed it. So they was giving me different books to read and asking me to break it down, what I got from it. And I went from being intimidated from these guys to not understanding the information to all of a sudden, okay, I'm starting to get it. Now they don't have to track me down to ask me. I'm tracking them down, giving them the answers. And the people that was coming to visit me, I had something new to give to them that I thought everybody wanted, right? And what I found out was that people would sit there in that visiting room just like this. What happened to Jermaine? Where's the old Jermaine? And I'm looking like, damn, I just lost him. So I started to dumb down my conversations in order to keep my visits going. But it got to the point where I'm like, no, this don't feel right. So I got comfortable and okay with losing people. But what that did was open the door to the people that I needed in my life that was conducive to this 180 that I was making.
Yes. Yes. I always say, as you're climbing on awareness, especially in, I'll say, our community, right? Because on one layer, one aspect of where we come from, you're kind of praised for being a goofy. So once you get to a place of awareness where your awareness of self, your awareness of life starts to, ascend, you have to become isolated in one way, right?
Mm.
Because you are literally ascending beyond what you've known. And in our community, it's so many wires crossed with that. Like, oh, you think you better. My mind has definitely grown.
Mm.
And if my mind has grown and my emotions have grown, that means I've gained emotional intelligence, cognitive awareness, which ultimately has caused me to expand, right?
Mm.
Nah, I can't do or be the same way. And I found myself the same at a certain part of my life, really dumbing down who I was
Mm.
for the same group of people that I had like in my life. And it wasn't until I realized, all right, let me just come full fledged with who the fuck I am.
Mm.
Like you literally just came back to this country from living in between 5 different countries. This little shit that they're talking about, although this may be the level that they're on, that's not interesting to you, right?
Mm.
Because it's not. So it's interesting that even being behind bars, you could still have that awareness and you can attribute some of it to some of the old heads in prison who saw something in you that was
Mm-hmm.
beyond what they saw when you first came in.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So
Well,
what
but
version of your go ahead.
actually, they synced it with me coming in, and that's what stood out with me compared to the other young guys. You know, so that's just one of their strategies. Let's pick out the smartest ones and weed out the other ones.
So that being said, what version of yourself do you feel like you had to die or put the rest? Or had to die or had to put the rest?
The version of me that felt like it's the younger me. You know, the younger me, because I didn't have that love for life. I didn't have that love for to want better for myself. You know, so it would definitely be the younger me before I made that decision that I was gonna learn as much as possible from that situation. Um, yeah, that person had to die off, but at the same time, a part of me died in that alley. You see
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? Because that was the birth, but it was also the death of that person. And not just the individual that lost their lives. You know, let's not get it understood. I hate being a part of the tricks, the strategies that's in our communities against each other. You know, and that was also a turning point when I realized, man, I fell into the trap that all of us fall into because it was created this way. You know, they set us up.
They
They got
literally
two for
tricked
one.
us to fall into those same traps. And if we take it down a rabbit hole, we talk about um, the school to prison pipeline
Mm-hmm.
for incarceration. And we go way, way back to, you know, the 13th Amendment and how essentially slavery was supposed to be over,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a comma in that amendment that said if you are a criminal, you can still be a slave.
Mm-hmm.
So they take these men who are newly free, some of them had even just fought in the Civil War, and let's say you and I are outside in front of a bar and we're partying. We
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do this yesterday. And we get arrested for loitering. And they give us 75 years.
Mm-hmm. A slave of servitude.
And once we go and we're booked in, we're literally right back on the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie Life, although, it's a hood classic that, is a comedy, it really speaks to the prison system and how in America, they've literally set us up to live in these neighborhoods, to have these specific type of lives based on survival, to end up in this space again to become a slave of servanthood.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you were able to go in for that time because, you know, I know two other people who maybe went in around the same time you did, unrelated, you would know them,
Mm-hmm.
but hey, they came out some goofies. I was like my cousin, I really was trying to figure out like, bro, what did you do for 21 years?
Yeah.
Like how you said, coming out, first he was trying to buy some clothes. I'm like, nobody wears that anymore.
Right.
Then he ready to jump in a car with my younger cousins and I'm like, and me, Mr. Unsolicited Advice, I hit him with hey, you probably should like chill out,
Mm-hmm.
and really give your nervous system a chance to reacclimate to society, right? Because being in that long, because of certain levels of suppression, certain things that you have to suppress, there is a level of PTSD that's there. That's not
Absolutely.
necessarily um, clinical, but it takes some time to rebalance because not only are you older, but you're older in a society that you're not 100% familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why, like, I really appreciate what you said when you like, nah, I'm chilling. I don't have time for that, right? It speaks to a certain level of maturity, and that maturity is commendable you know, being in that long. But now hearing that you had some people who kind of snatched you up early on, that really speaks volumes to the trajectory of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in this crazy situation I'd never been in before,
Mm-hmm.
and there were people who on the outside influenced me in a way to get me in here. But then the old heads that I run into in here influenced me in a way to get me out of here and for me to be better once I leave. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so you're out, you did your time. I'm a person, like, once a person has done their time, it ain't no shoulda, woulda, couldas or nothing. They paid their debt to society. Fuck off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that you're out, I know we were talking kind of off cam about your organization that you're working on,
Yeah.
along with a podcast that you're working on. So tell us about Unnecessary University.
Well, Unnecessary University is a name I came up with back in 2006. Again, I was incarcerated at that time. So you know when you in these cells and you're in the room with somebody else for 23 hours in one. You know, you trying to find ways to stay away from him. He's trying to find ways to stay away from you. So you put your headphones off, you zone out. Sometimes you just close your eyes and just imagine. Imagine. So I had visions and my mind was my first release date. You know, I close my eyes, I can be anywhere. So I was always free. I never let them captivate my mind. So I had this name, Unnecessary University. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. Clothing line, a book. I didn't know, so I just put it on the back burner. And back then, you know, you just wrote all your ideas down. You just kept writing them. You know, and just so when I came home, I had a book of just ideas, great ideas. And yeah, I got out. I reached out to this girl I went to grew up with in the neighborhood. Found out she's into business consulting. I talked to her about some of my plans, and I told her that I wanted to turn Unnecessary University into a nonprofit. And she was like, "Well, what would it be?" I said, "Well, it'll be a speaking engagement for a platform to have people from all walks of life talk about the things they've been through, how they overcame, and what they're currently doing for themselves, family, and community." Since then, it's grown into something else. Um, Program development. I created a program that's currently being taught in Kiwani, Life Skills Reentry Center called the Trauma Unit. Um, so I found that I got this niche for programming, facilitating, and program development. So right now we're in the stage on creating rewiring the brain for juveniles. It's going to be an 8-week course, and we're putting that together. But it also turned it into a job referral.
Okay.
Right now at the Work Release Center, I'm able to refer guys to different jobs because I had a few jobs. I made connections with these other jobs, made a huge impression, and I asked them if I can continue to be the face of those that's coming home from prison, and can I vouch for people? And I didn't know what I was doing, just shooting, just being me. You know, it's magic in just being you. How the doors open, just be you. And now I got a connection with different employers, and I help other guys, um, get jobs. So Unnecessary University is something that's dear to me. I just picked board members. We're in the
It sounds like
process of
it's a resource hub as well, right?
right.
Um, so even if it is, I think you're LLC in it, but I would even say LLC it as a non for profit as well, right?
Hmm.
Because um, it seems like it's resource, but also outreach.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the name Unnecessary University comes from, to me, prison was unnecessary. Had I had the right things growing up in my neighborhood, had I had the right things in my family, the right, um, you know how they say the village is also a part of the, helping nourish and grow a child. Had I had all the things I needed, I felt like prison was would have been avoidable. Yet, however, I did go to prison. I learned some things from it, so it was a university in itself. So what am I going to do with the lessons that I learned? Okay, let me create something that's going to help people reentry for with reentry, but also help kids avoid prison, help other people be influenced by motivational stories of resilience, encouragement. It's a whole different, like, jail is an unnecessary university. Prostitution is an unnecessary university. Um, Selling drugs is an unnecessary university. All the hardships that you can come out of and still learn things from. Let's put these stories together and help prevent somebody else from going through it. However, if they do go through these same things, let's show them how to bounce back.
I dig that name, like something that, you know, could have potentially been avoidable in my life, or something that was unnecessary, something that was traumatic, that was unnecessary, still taught me a lesson.
Absolutely.
So here are the lessons to learn before you go in that route. And if you just so happen to find yourself going that route, this is how you can apply that experience and gaining a better awareness. Okay, so when you went in, it wasn't no social media, right? So we're one of the generations. We are the generation. Forget one. We are the generation that has that unique. We're at the end of the millennials, so we have that unique experience where we've got to experience analog and digital, right? So when you went in, we still had cassettes and CDs.
Oh wow, yes.
Right. So, what are some of the difficult points that you experience, like integrating back into society? So I know, of course, while you were in, social media came out. So prison gradually kind of caught up with social media. So what were some of the difficulties that you experienced?
The difficulties I experienced, lucky for me, I went to Kiwani re-entry before I got out. And they helped us with understanding how to use a computer. They had different avenues for us to learn how to use the iPhone, YouTube videos, and I was able to work in the media room with studio equipment, recording equipment, audio equipment. So that was a huge help. However, however, so when I first came home, they gave me 5 hours out at the work release center. I had to go get my ID. So I got my ID, and on my way back, I have a lot of hours to kill. So I'm downtown. My main thing is trying to understand this phone, because this phone is so key to everything, right?
Right. Okay.
So I will say that my first 5 hours out, I spent 75% of my time with my head down like this.
Trying to learn this damn phone.
When I went back in, bro, I tell you, my neck hurted like hell. And I had a huge migraine because I understood the significance of this device and how important it is. And yeah, I felt so, I don't even know the word. I'm downtown like this the whole time. One person showed me how to use the Google map. So I'm like this. It was just so uneasy, man.
So okay, so more so we'll say more so technology or phone technology was one of the difficult.
Yeah.
I know for my cousin, it was navigation. It was very difficult for him to like navigate through the city. Like we even let him get in the car. We let him get in the car, drive on his own with the phone and the navigation. And it was difficult for him, just from the technology. Okay, so what is one of the more easier things that you've gotten acclimated to that you probably didn't expect? Like, man, okay, I was able to do this or kind of catch on to this easy peasy.
Me having my family now as opposed to what I had then, I cherish every moment. I spend more time at home. I'm surprised that I have so much time to do so many other things, but I'm at the house. I'm chilling. I just lost my grandmother, so it's been hard.
Condolences, I heard.
And I got used to coming home, checking on her, feeding her, and doing her hair and cutting her toenails, taking out the garbage, and that's what's more rewarding to me now, like the simple things in life. And it came with ease because I wanted it so much. you know, my immediate family, I absolutely love them. They love me, and I just put a lot of petty stuff to the side and focus on what's more important. So
And I
we,
always say it doesn't matter how much time you've done. It's almost like the longer amount of time that you do, you value time even more.
mm,
But no matter how much time you've done, one of the main lessons that you learn is the value of time, but
mm,
more so your personal time, like the time that
mm,
you have to actually give and share and express. And after being in, of course, for that amount of time, you know, just a hug, a genuine hug from someone in your family means way more than what it would have meant before you went in, right?
mm,
Just those genuine expressions or the genuine company of somebody who's in this space and I'm able to speak to them freely really
yeah.
means a lot. And most people who haven't had that experience really would not be able to empathize. Like it means a lot to have a conversation with this person exactly with what I want to talk about for
Mm,
as long as I want,
mm,
right? On my personal time. So,
yes.
what advice would you give a person who I'll say newly out after a long span of time, newly out, let's say 2 to 5 years? What advice would you give them, as it relates to reacclimating with society and moving forward in a different life progression?
Well, first, I, they should have a vision. Have a vision of the person that you want to be. And my advice would be like I always tell the guys at the Berkeley Center: put your small beefs to the side. A lot of them want to come out. The first thing they want to do, they want to, get with their girls, or get with a girl, spend some time with the guys. But you don't hear the conversations of people talking about, man, I'm gonna go holler at grandma. I'm gonna go talk to my aunt. I'm gonna go see my kids. It's more conversations about the wrong things and less conversation about the right things. So I tell them all the time is that spend some time with the people that held your hand while you walked across that street and couldn't protect yourself. You know, think about all them people that was there that helped you get to where you are now. Even if you got small beefs with them, they still need to be acknowledged for the things they've done that helped you get to where you are.
Absolutely.
Spend some time with the people that matter most because life is short. That's what I would tell them. As far as I tell them all the time that get out of your own way, and sometimes the best decision to make is the opposite of what you've been making. Sometimes it's just that simple. It's just that simple. And to look
Well,
within,
I have
man,
a
because the
podcast.
answers that's in.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, and to look within because all the answers that we're looking for is inside of us.
Yes. I have a recent podcast episode. It was inspired by one of my clients who she started just as a life coach client. And then her husband, completely unaware that she was a client of mine, then became a life coach client.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this conflict of interest, but of course I still had, you know, client confidentiality. So then both of them moved over to intuitive sessions. And it's almost like their experience with each other started to like overlap.
Mm.
And it kind of got to the point where for both of them, it required them to really look in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
right? The issues that they were having with each other, it required them to like look in the mirror because some of the issues were petty based on their own situations that they've had. So it's really interesting that you speak to um, being more communal as opposed to running to these kind of like quick fixes. Really
Mm,
being more communal to connect with, like you said, the people who held your hand or the people who were there for you, because that allows you to put that big ass mirror in your face.
mm,
You coming out, putting the time and the energy in with your grandmother allowed you to see who you really were.
mm,
Right? After all of these years, who I am was not the man that was behind these bars. Who I am was really the guy who was released and what he did with his time afterwards.
mm. Oh wow, that's great.
So now, after I've been released and I'm putting this time, energy, effort, and intention into these things, it's showing me a mirror of who I am. So it's very interesting that some principles that you learned, while being away are still universal principles that people can use even in relationships. So I think that was really like profound. Okay, so you gave advice to people who are coming out. So what's next for you and Unnecessary University? I know you were speaking of the outreach and also moving into the podcast lane.
Yeah.
Um, what's next? I know you pretty much out and you chilling,
Mm-hmm.
like you on your homebody flow, and I feel
Right.
you. But
Right.
what's next? Because I know
I'm,
you
I'm
got.
finding I'm finding myself in the coaching arena. I'm a
And
individual development specialist,
okay,
coach for Cara Collective, and but yeah, Unnecessary University, man. My plan is to have a huge center in Chicago somewhere where it'd be a university, performance arts. You have classes where you're dealing with trauma, um, outreach, in reach, re-entry, working with the juveniles, trying to keep them out of prison, having them come take my program, and once they complete it, try to get the court to drop their charges, as well as the follow through. I noticed that a lot of these organizations don't have follow through. They take them only so far. But I'm all about trying to change not just the mindset, but the look as well. So um, I've been trying to dress better than I used to. The clothes that they once bought me before when I first came out, these clothes are part of who I was, not who I am. So
got
I'm
you.
working on my dress code and teaching these younger people as well as older people that it's a look of professionalism too that comes with this. You can't just say that I'm a whole different person and you dressing the same. To me, you have to switch everything around. So just taking
There's a book
unnecessary
I want
diversity.
to introduce you to. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, I'm familiar with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Actually, that's one of the first chapters we're talking about adding to the program we're building. But I'm also familiar with that with my trauma unit program that's being taught at Kiwani. We talk about um, actually we talk a lot about that the author and that book and that program, and we create a space for guys from all walks of life. And through the trauma unit, we identify the traumas of our community, both outside and in the house, and we realize that a lot of these traumas that was unresolved traumas from back then actually has something to do with our incarceration. So
Yes.
so that's what we also was also what we do.
So I brought up The Body Keeps the Score because one of my certifications is Neuro Linguistics Programming. So it's NLP for short. And in layman's terms, it's like the psychology of the body, right?
Mhm.
So you can have certain physical experiences that energy stays or rests in certain parts of your body, right?
Mhm.
And for some people, later on in life, that mixed with their diet, that energy materializes and it turns into cancer, right? Like you could have a person who was angry and bitter about something that they experienced and they never let it go. And then
Mhm.
that materialized, right? That emotion materialized into growth in their body. So what NLP does is it identifies that trapped energy, and it shows you how to release it just through basic like um, physical methods. So the Body Keeps the Score was a really good book in the beginning when I first was learning some of the practitioner tactics to help with clients who were dealing with like anxiety
Mm-hmm.
or who kind of had a hard time with focus. So it's very interesting to show that, you know, your program is already using that book. So that
Mm-hmm.
really speaks to the depth of, I'll say, exploration, emotional exploration, and the depth of healing that you guys are working with there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because understanding that your body can hold energy even after you've released the memory shows you that you can feel like you're done with a situation, but your energy won't be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple as identifying that that is that energy and
Mm-hmm.
moving it along your body, right? Because if anything, we're just moving electricity. So
Yeah.
knowing how to move that energy throughout your body, where it brings you to a place of calm or balance, is essential when you're dealing with trauma, because some of those trauma triggers can come up and it'll send you into a whole whirlwind
Mm-hmm.
where for most people they don't even have control over it. So being able to identify it and then redirect it is key.
Yeah,
So
it's also sad that we teach our kids algebra and trigonometry before we teach them healthy coping mechanisms and how to deal with these things within themselves. It's
but you know that's another part of the program, right? The
yeah,
program
absolutely.
initially was to keep us emotionally ignorant
Mm-hmm.
to perpetuate that cycle, right?
Absolutely.
You know, at this age, now looking back, you know, when I saw like my cousins or my uncle yelling at their kids, my cousins like, stop all of that crying, boys don't cry. I
Mm-hmm.
see how damaging that was, where you're programming a child, a man early on to repress his emotions, which
Mm-hmm.
we can't ever really 100% repress our emotions. So you have me repressing in one area, but then I'm releasing it in anger. And
Yeah.
I'm not realizing that anger is still an emotion.
Yeah. I,
And a lot
I
of what I'm functioning out of is hurt.
the
Yeah.
end of my trauma unit program, we talk about that, and we talk about the emotional intelligence when, especially when it comes to toxic masculinity, how we do tell our kids not to cry. So what happens with that child? He takes that same energy to the playground. He talk his other friends into, oh, he crying over here. Let's talk about this other guy. What happens to that guy? That young man that was crying. He learned to turn the emotions off. So what happens is that you create this well of tears over the years that just build up. And what also happened is that you raising these men to not be able to express themselves emotionally because they get ridiculed and they get talked about. So what happened is that society, our neighborhoods, we do it ourselves. We sentence our kids before they go to court. You know, but we also that these kids grow up and they turn into the Terminator. And what happens with the Terminator? If you look back at the Terminator movies, the Terminator has one mission: to destroy, 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 even at the expense of his own limbs.
Yes.
You know, so at the expense of our kids' own lives, they losing their legs, they being paralyzed, their mindset is paralyzed, but yet they continue to destroy and destroy. And that's what happens when we tell our kids not to cry and deal with their emotions.
And I found in most cases for a lot of parents, especially some of these younger parents now, which you know I attribute to our generation because some of these younger parents are our kids, and to see them telling their kids to shut up and start crying because they don't even have the emotional capacity to deal with their own emotions. So I'm yelling at you, telling you to shut up and stop crying because I definitely don't know what to do with yours. I don't even know how to handle yours because I haven't even begun to turn the key to unpack mine. And I feel like that's what perpetuates like that constant cycle, like you said, the constant cycle of emotional ignorance. So this was a
Absolutely.
really good conversation. We definitely gonna have to dig back in on um, some more of these emotional intelligence topics.
Absolutely.
Um, I like your perspective on trauma. I like your perspective on emotional intelligence and the inner healing through traumatic experiences, right? Because I could talk about the shit that I've been through a million times over. But if I haven't put any effort and energy into healing it and healing it inwardly, right, where it changes the type of person I am, then I'm really just talking about it. But I can see the level of growth that's there, right? And the level of emotional intelligence that's there. Yeah. And I can definitely attribute it to the traumas that you experienced and how you've dissected them, realized what they were, and used them to progress. So this is definitely a pleasure. Like I said, we're going to dig in again. Wait, give me your socials and how people can contact you if they want to learn more about you.
All the handles under the Unnecessary University. Actually wanted to do this podcast before I start spreading my wings elsewhere, doing social media. So just stay tuned, and we're going to be locked in. You're going to hear more about Jermaine, Unnecessary University, and it's going to be a good year.
Indeed. So this is Jermaine with Unnecessary University. Appreciate you coming on. It's been real. Yep. So if you enjoyed this content and you'd like to see more of it, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hope to see you again.